This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Yeah, surf the beat cause the bass is bubbling. Gotta get it in before it comes tumbling down. There's only so much time to find this kind of rhyme to express my mind.
Christmas Jive Turkey. This is the last of the CageCast. Oh man, it has been just a wild journey. Netflix will not be renewing Luke Cage, will not be renewing the Iron Fist. And so this may be our last time to step into the cage. I am your host, Charlie the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is my exceptionally skinny and handsome rich friend.
It's Mozz.
That's the guy. Welcome, Mozz, once again to the CageCast. You know, the hope is that next they'll announce a Heroes for Hire series with Luke and Danny, and that's the hope. But they haven't done so yet. But we'll see. So you might not have heard the last Jive Turkey, but you have. This will be the last CageCast unless a miracle happens. Oh, anyway,
I'm sure there'll be other Netflix properties or Marvel properties that we could take on.
Well, actually, since you mentioned it, we can do this on air. You can think about it. You don't have to answer now. Rob was asking if you would like to take over the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast. If you and I could take that over, yeah. Starting just after the new movie comes out. So later this year, if you want, we will be the voices of Nuff Said.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Is it a good show?
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Oh, I thought you watched it. Oh, it's a fantastic show.
Because it started off kind of really slow, and I watched the first episode, and I was like, this seems all right.
You know what I'll tell you is it's actually a very bingeable show.
Huh.
If you watch like the first 3 episodes, it's a much better show than if you just watch one episode and then wait a week and watch another episode.
Gotcha.
And honestly, the last like 3 seasons have just been incredible. Last 2.5 definitely. You know, it's just really some great story. And like I said, this season has just been amazing in how it really emphasizes, you know, how many problems the world has and why the Avengers can't be there all the time, because the Avengers got their own problems.
Right.
And, you know, best illustrated that while they were fighting Thanos in Wakanda, Graviton was about to destroy the world, and they had to defeat Graviton. They defeated Graviton, and as we always say, in another universe, they didn't defeat Graviton, but Graviton defeated Thanos, but wound up destroying the world during it as well. So
they did end the show off with a bang with, I thought, maybe the best episode they've ever done. No, of Luke Cage here.
Oh yeah. Oh, honestly, this is just. You know, it's great because, you know, we're going to be doing the second episode of the Iron Cast after. And I think that there's a lot of time between the two. In this one, you know, you really get this question put forth. How do you make peace as a hero when you know you can't save the world? And I think that is the arc that Luke is working towards in this. And I think there is this question that there is very much a feeling by the end of it of betrayal, that I think where they leave Luke at the end of this is a pretty difficult spot, you know, when you actually break it down. But, you know, we can get to that in a minute, because it opens up, of course, with Mariah in court. And, you know, and this is what I was saying before about, you know, they want to, you know, Misty wants to say this is open and shut. We got.
And I am very, very surprised at her attitude towards it, how sure she is, how short of a memory she has, and how she doesn't seem to understand that people like this usually get away with it.
Well, yeah, because Misty is still holding, basically, you know, here's my honest opinion. I think Misty wants out of being a cop. I think she really wants to get herself to a different place, and she wants to end on a win. She wants to end knowing that she brought down her arch nemesis.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like she wants to go by the end of the episode, though. No.
This is what I felt ever since. You have her dealing with Luke and her feeling the constraints of, police work. Of the paperwork and the business of it, and all the rules and obligations of police work. And I remember the first time she uses her fist and smashes something of steel, and she realizes, oh wow, I have superpowers. And then when she's fighting, you know, Bushmaster at the end, I mean, I think that idea that I'm one of the superheroes now with my bionic arm, um, and I think that she is feeling that, she's not cut out to be a cop anymore. She can catch criminals, but she doesn't want to have to deal. She wants to be, a vigilante. She wants to be a superhero like Luke.
But at the same time, at the very end, she says to him, that you're doing the wrong thing. This isn't you. And if you step out of line, I will be there to catch you. And she almost seems energized by the win over Mariah. And to me, she seemed like she was excited about being a cop again.
Well, but the truth is they didn't win over.
Well, I mean, that's true.
Well, I mean, legally, this is an interesting legal thing, because, I mean, if you're going to jump ahead, when they talk about that family's first foundation, that's still a going concern worth a cool few $100 million. Because, and okay, spoilers, if you die before you can be prosecuted, you are legally innocent. And because she died before she could be tried for insider trading, she was never an insider trader. That money earned is just money that is in her foundation now, and will go on forever.
Because all that money went to her foundation, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully. Well, I mean, it all depends, because I'm sure. Well, yes, and presumably to be administered by her lawyer. So we'll see how that plays out. But presumably, I think there are certain rules about how much good work you must do if you run a foundation, and to maintain your tax-free status, But he still gets good administrative fees on the deal, so yeah, he ain't hurting. But that is the actual. I mean, that's the reality of it. Is her dying.
But at the same time, I mean, it's like, Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight. The preservation of her image might be good for Harlem in any case. But I think where the idea of justice comes into play as it deals with Misty is that, justice was served, whether it was by the law or whether it was by a vigilante justice. The universe took care of itself. And in much the same way that Mariah and anybody in the life expects it to, Well,
yeah, but to that extent, for Misty, it was the vigilantes. It was the vigilante, and maybe she wants that kind of justice.
I could dig that.
She wants to be a part of that world of justice of vigilantes. Yeah. That's the other theory, And I think that it's a fair cop that maybe that is where she's coming from. I think that from her perspective, because I do think that if we do get any more of this, if we do get any more of the Heroes for Hire crew, it is, I think Misty's gonna. Misty is gonna be a central character. Because I think that Misty really makes for a good character to have in these stories. But we get a little ahead of ourselves here. We do basically we get a lot of tie-ups, and again, I really can't abide the implication of the redemption of Bushmaster. It is without a doubt my least favorite aspect of this show. I mean, granted, he's half crippled, and maybe there's this idea that he has suffered enough, and I'm like, no, he could spend the rest of his life in a prison hospital. They got
Yeah.
nice hospitals and prisons. He'll probably live a lot longer, quite frankly, because he has destroyed
Yeah,
himself.
I think he just comes
I
back
don't
as a
think
better
Bushmaster
villain,
comes back.
like completely overtaken by the
Um,
Nightshade. Because that's what he's going to Jamaica to do, right? To better himself using the rare Jamaican Nightshade?
well, to heal himself, and it is that idea of you can
Yeah, that's what
basically they
they
want
think.
to wean him off of it, giving him the diluted night.
I think they're just like
And hopefully,
created the origin story for a
that's the
badass
thing.
villain for the future.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to see if he comes back. But I kind of think that would hurt the character, because I think the only redeeming quality of Bushmaster is his somewhat perverted moral compass. And if you just have him come back as just a straight up villain, I think that it loses its edge. I don't think he works as Diamondback. I think Diamondback. I think Diamondback barely worked, quite frankly.
For sure.
I think Cottonmouth was the much better villain of the piece than Diamondback. Yeah, and then Diamondback getting his super suit. Although we haven't seen if Diamondback comes back with super strength yet, though that was strongly implied. So if we ever get a third season, we might get Diamondback back with the bulletproof skin as well. Because when you have when you can give people superhuman powers, why wouldn't you just do this literal gangster?
I mean, for their purpose, it was probably a brilliant idea.
But anyway,
fair enough.
Well, you want the control, and but it's
yeah, we might get it on the Disney streaming service,
if we ever get to see how that all plays out. But they might, it might come back to Disney. Well, I think that's sort of like one of these complex questions. Is I think Netflix has certain rights to it, so I don't know. Although it might be that Disney basically, or Netflix worked out a deal where like Netflix is going to continue on with like Daredevil and Jessica Jones. Although Daredevil, everything had a major drop off this season. Although I think a lot of that has to do with a less of a sense of urgency. I don't know. I think that it's a weird quality, because even I haven't actually watched all of it.
But if you honestly think about it,
Daredevil's already out.
I view it like this. Daredevil was amazing, and that was their flagship banner show that they spent all their energy on. And then they made Jessica Jones, which was a hit too. And then they started like reaching too far. I think Luke Cage was subpar relative to the first two shows. And then I think they went even further and put even less effort into the Iron Fist, and then tried to, salvage what was left by making the Defenders and seeing if that works. But in truth, those two shows, I think, really are the ones that deserve to be on, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think we all can agree that Iron Fist was never the strongest contender. And, like I said, I will say that I've always enjoyed Luke Cage. As much as I will complain about their attempt to redeem Bushmaster in this,
Yeah.
But I'm happy on how everyone's story ends up. Especially, of course, what I think is maybe the most important character in this is of course Tilda. And I think that's the very important thing about that final scene of Tilda coming into the club at the very end of the episode, because she's wearing her comics accurate look, and that is essentially her embracing her villainous heritage, and agreeing, and basically very much becoming another Stokes.
Right.
Becoming the double Stokes, as she said.
She's such a spoiled brat.
And
It's unbelievable. Like the privilege of having, the ability to hold yourself up to being a rebel and not being the kind of person your family has. And then the moment she dies, she comes over to the reading of the will, and she can't wait to get her hands on the club. She can't wait to get her hands on the club. But she still has to put a sour face on it, like she still has this image. And then when reality smacks her in the face that she's not getting the club, and she's like, oh, really, I am on my own. Oh, okay, what do I do now? And it's just childish, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, although to be fair, I mean, she did murder her own mother. So
well, no, but she didn't know that. You know what I mean? When she was writing the will,
in that situation. Oh no, she knew the minute. That's why she writes the will. Because, I mean, and that's the whole thing. Is that immediately after Tilda calls her mother. And I think she realized.
No. But like she died on the spot as soon as she noticed. So Tilda came and saw her and left. The will was probably already written, and then I think she died. I don't think.
Yeah. No, but she says, "I need to write up the will right now."
As she's bleeding from her mouth.
To her lawyer right then, because it's written on yellow legal pad. No, before
So you're saying she knew she was poisoned, even though she was surprised when she starts coughing up. She goes, Tilda, like, oh my God, she got me, or
Well, I think that she knew. She knew Tilda did something. She maybe didn't know exactly what. And maybe by that point she was thinking, oh,
yeah, I just thought it was like because Tilda came in and she extended her hand to her, and Tilda turned her down, still playing the bratty little kid, saying, I don't want what you have. And so to me, she's like, all right, fine. If you don't want it, fine, I'll take you out. How about that? And I think she was rewarded for her cautiousness, by the poisoning.
Yeah. I think her rewriting the will was very much meant to imply that she knew she was.
I prefer it because that doesn't seem to fit well with me. I prefer to see it the other way.
Well, I guess my take.
Because I thought she was planning and hoping to have Tilda be her arms on the outside or whatever, And when Tilda completely rejects her, she goes, all right, fine, I can't rely on her.
Yeah. But the thing is that a will isn't the kind of thing. It's not like Tilda's going to know that she got written out of the will unless she dies. And there is an urgency in that moment, that is meant to. Like I said, I take it to mean that she knew Tilda slipped or something, and I think she knew. The kiss on the lips, calling her mother, all that kind of stuff. And she knows her daughter certainly has access to all kinds of poisons, The
urgency in that moment is interesting.
Does, and she knows, and yeah. So she makes the choice, and she, she maybe isn't expecting Luke Cage to be there, but she probably really appreciates it. Because, again, it's like she's seeing this, the most, this is the one quality in my life that is constant, is Luke Cage. Luke Cage is always here for me. Luke Cage loves me. Anyway, but
and if Luke Cage loves me, then that means Harlem really loves me.
And not for nothing. Yes, and well, of course, Luke Cage, he does get in his statement when, he asks her what it feels like, and she says...
But again, to the point of that's how a gangster goes, I think everybody in that life comes to terms with that fact that that's how they're going to go. And that's, the justice that they know. This is the justice that they rely on. This is the world that they know and the rules of the world as they know it. I mean, they don't respect the laws of regular people, but they have their own set of laws. And according to that, that is how all gangsters go. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and again, like we've said, she got her chance to really screw over
Mm.
everybody
Mm.
that she wanted to, especially Luke Cage. You know, and I think that that is the real story there. It's like, yeah, she cuts her daughter out of the well, um, but and
Yeah.
not for nothing, her daughter may still have a role in the family foundation. In fact, I think she actually officially is the medical director of the family's first initiative. So you know, there's all
Right.
sorts of things for her to have money and access coming back. But the reality is that she wanted to pull
Right.
Luke
But
into her world, and she very much
yeah.
succeeded
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't see
because.
that
Mhm.
as a betrayal or as a bad thing or anything like that. It's like he's giving up of himself in order to protect Harlem. You know what I mean? He's giving up his moral grandstand to save Harlem. He's giving up his piety, his piousness, to save Harlem.
Well, yeah, but well, what he's doing is he's acknowledging, and really what it is he is acknowledging his own limitations of his power, but more to the point, he's making the deals with the
Mm.
criminal element, which we see when he's dealing with the Italians first, you know. With, and of course we have that great line about coffee
Yeah,
again. It's like,
indeed.
I don't drink espresso. You just never had it made right, you know. And yeah, but he is making this choice. I will allow criminality. Rather, I'm not going to be a
Right.
crime fighter. I'm going to be the crime broker. And that is when it becomes this reality that is, he is not he cannot be the superhero anymore. And they make and the point is made in this in with
Right.
his friend who runs the barbershop, basically says,
Yeah. No,
you
but
can't
like
be Luke Trump, you
I
can't make
see it
Harlem
as
great
a
again.
valid point, and I applaud him for making the stand to say that you don't belong here because, you have to understand that it's a phase shift. So he can't exist there because that element doesn't go there in the natural order of things. You know, so he's just taking on a different mental. He doesn't need to go, which is fair. But at the same time, I think Mariah proved her point too. Like when she got up in the courtroom and started talking about what would happen to Harlem and how she had kept the wolves at bay and protected Harlem, she was making a point that the world is really big out there and it is really ugly everywhere. This ideal version of the world really doesn't exist anywhere. All we can do
Hmm.
is manage our best, and I have been out there managing it. And to Luke's point, he makes that realization too that, oh my God, this,
Yeah.
schoolboy idea of a perfect world where there's no crime is, it would require changing a whole lot more than my little patch of land. Let me protect my little patch of land. And the best way to do that is to mitigate the danger as best I can. And if people are going to see me as less, then so be it. But Harlem will be protected. Babies won't be being
Hmm.
shot on the corner all the time.
Yeah, I mean that is the argument. It is it basically. Although I think what it comes down to is the idea that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and I think
Mm-hmm.
there is even meant to imply this at the very end when oh, what's her name, the nurse comes back, when Claire comes back, and we don't even see her because Luke says
And
tell
in
her just
and in the in the in
you know
the final
tell her
conversation between
it's
Misty and Luke, where Misty warns him, if you step out of line and you start being like one of them, I'll come after you. And he goes, I'm counting on it. You know, so it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I gotta sell myself
well,
and I
yeah.
gotta take on the responsibility and the consequences that come with it. But I'll protect Harlem, and if I get out of line, I am going to need you to check me because I don't want to be that, and I'm lucky to have you there to do that.
Yeah, and that is a that I mean, like I said, what you can say
Hmm.
is he's certainly certainly feels that way, I'm sure. You know, but of course he you know, he his the reality is that he is likely to lose his sense of self in the coming
But it's not
years
impossible to
as the story
maintain a healthy
progresses,
perspective
because
either, as long as you pay attention to it. No, don't you think?
yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, you know, basically the idea of
Hmm.
organized crime being truly organized is, I think that's the story that criminals tell
No, but here's,
themselves. I
here's the
think, you
interesting.
know,
When you say
King says
criminals
that,
tell themselves, you're
not in the
forgetting that
show as
they're
much,
us
but you
too.
know,
We tell ourselves that. But maybe we need to. So it's like, you've got to understand that part of it is human
well, of
nature
course, of
as
course.
well. And how much can you squelch it? And is that really safe to squelch it and let it fester and grow? Because energy needs to be expressed. And if it doesn't, if it's repressed, it mutates and turns into something much harder to deal with down the road. That
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
think
and
he's doing the
yeah, I
most
mean
heroic thing
that's
by
that
taking
is
this on,
the crux of it.
by fighting against every bit of his moral fiber to do this, because it's what's necessary.
Mm. Yeah, and there is a strong argument to be made for that. It's just what it is just the, like I say. I
Right.
think that the point is that there's a temptation to what he's doing, and it
Mm.
is a temptation that, in his rejection of Claire at the end, is honestly his own. You know, is the statement that it might not be so cut and dry, that he will be the good leader. You
Well, I
know,
don't think
that he will be the man who can make
he's
fascism thrive. Um,
promoting fascism by any means. And to call it that, I think is
well,
contextualizing
I
it
mean,
very, very
well,
conveniently.
well,
Hmm.
let's look at it. He is saying, "I have strength, and I will allow you to operate,
Mm.
provided that rules are followed. And
Hmm.
if rules are not followed, that will be my sole strength. You know, with no recourse or goal of you know, that there will be no
But
recourse
but
for
but
you
wait a second, wait a second.
if I make
But
my
if you just
choice.
look
You
at
know, that there
the
is
history of how he has
no court of
behaved so
appeals.
far, that shouldn't be an issue. Even now, he's compromising even with himself to enact something that is going to save a lot of people. So I think the idea that he would be unwilling to bend or unwilling to listen,
And yeah,
I don't think is supported by what we've seen him do.
well, it's not so much his unwillingness to bend or listen. It is just, you know, essentially he is going to have to
Mm.
come to this reality that he must either be a
Right.
gangster
Mm.
and use his power to crush his opposition, or he will be shown to not be a gangster. I mean, that's the reality of it, is that
Right.
if he is going to be this new super gangster, he is going to have to use his powers to to essentially control the situation
Right, but
and
I don't
mete
think that makes
out
you a fascist. The police do the
with
same thing because
violence
that's their job.
those who cross it.
And you can't expect us to follow like a human set of
Well,
morals when we're living in a world where
the police
those
are
morals
authorized.
should maybe be amended to reflect a greater responsibility that falls on a person, and their morality should be different than most people's moralities. No?
Well, I
That's
mean, no,
interesting.
I think there
You
should be
expect
one
the same
morality.
adherence to the morality
That
when you're
morality
presented
says
with
that
different
there is a
levels of challenges or different levels of what is or different levels of temptation of what is possible, what you can do.
well, I guess it comes down to what you're defining
Hmm.
as what Luke Cage is up against. Right now, Luke Cage is making a choice to
Well, not
engage
necessarily that, but
in criminal enterprise.
he's offering to manage its
is
flow
conspiring.
so that it can be managed to the least level possible, which I think, philosophically speaking, is a better thing to aim towards
That's
than
called
this lofty
conspiracy.
idea of getting rid of all crime, because that statement doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Well, here's what the question isn't: is he trying to get rid of all
Of course
crime?
he is, but no, you're saying the alternative is, which he should be aiming for by all rights, is the eliminating of all crime, which is impossible.
No, I'm actually saying that's not what he should be shooting for. He should neither be seeking to eliminate all crime or control all crime. He should be seeking.
But yeah, I think the arc here is he's realized that defending people, you can only go so far when you don't foresee the challenges coming. If you see the waves coming, you can do something about it. But if you're still waiting for the waves to hit before you act, you're 3-4 steps behind and people are going to get hurt. Whereas if you can foresee the dangers coming and manage them so that the flood is barely a trickle, maybe you've actually done some good.
And what I will say is, I don't disagree with your point, but I will say that
right, but that's what he's giving up. It's his sacrifice.
You know, and yeah,
for us,
and that's
right.
That's the
which
thing.
Is why he needs to leave Pops. But maybe the way to be a hero is to not be the hero that everybody thinks you should be.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that that what Mariah says about the siren song of Harlem's Paradise is 100% true. You know, you see when he first gets it, he says, "What are you going to do?" And he says, "I want to burn this place down."
Yeah, I thought that was like a weird little transition into all of a sudden, oh, wait a second, he did take it? Yeah, maybe it was edited poorly, but...
Because it's the idea that, you know what it is, and again, like I said,
I don't think it's fair to call it fascism. I don't think it's fair to call it fascism.
And maybe I'm being too harsh saying fascism. Okay, so we won't say fascism. He's the guy who says, I can be the better dictator. I can be the better Caesar. Let's say, I will be the better Caesar than those who came before me, because other people did not have. And I guess what the counter argument is that it comes down to whether or not you actually think that Mariah actually really cared about Harlem, that Mariah actually loved Harlem. If Mariah really did love Harlem as much as Luke Cage, then Luke is becoming what Mariah was. Someone who is using her power to help Harlem, even as that power also allows for...
I don't think that Mariah had the moral robustness to handle that situation. She didn't come from a situation that gave her that sort of upbringing or that sort of what Luke had with his father, and sort of like, I love the fact that they ended on one of his little sermon-y statements as well. That's what Luke's also his superpower is that upbringing. So I don't think she was prepared for it, because I think she had a terrible childhood and a terrible life, and she was formed that way through the pressures of the environment around her. I think Luke is better suited to it. So I think everybody tries their best, and I think maybe if you view her story as a tragedy in that she tried her best but she succumbed to the temptations, now it's someone else's hand to try their hand at not being corrupted by it.
And that is where we leave Luke. Will he be corrupted by the siren song of Harlem's Paradise, or will he maintain himself a hero, even if only a hero for hire?
Yeah, I
Um,
love though
and you know,
the
that's where
one
we
sort
leave
of
this episode.
little bit of dialogue that when it
Yes.
hit, I was like, wow, that's so well written and so cool. Was when Shades is walking away from him, telling him that he needs to take on the mantle, and as he's walking away, he goes, "See, you're not polite anymore. That's how it starts." And it's such a subtle but deep thing to say that, you know, you've already taken a step back. You know what I mean? And it's just a slide. I thought that was really well put by Shades.
Yeah. And yes, and it is the truth of it. Like I said, you know, for what it's worth, Shades knows this is the path you're walking. And of course, Shades, who, you know, I love, you know, when they come to finally arrest him, and he's like, yeah, you got me. You know, he's not fighting anymore. He's just like, this is my life now, and I'm not living a lie anymore. I am who I am. And I guess, you know, if there's anything else to be said, it's that he's not living a lie. And, you know, I wonder if that, I mean, I hope maybe we'll see Shades again. You know, maybe he's going to become
I would rather see him become a right hand to Luke, because that's what Luke needs. You know, the idea of the sirens, Odysseus got away from the sirens too because he had his crew with him. I think if Luke has Misty watching out for him, if he has Claire watching out for him, if he has Shades and his political understanding of how things work at his you know, right hand, I think there is a chance that this is the one time it could work. And Sugar, excuse me, right? And Sugar.
Well, he's got Sugar, so let's not forget Sugar. Sugar's the new right hand. And, you know, one thing I'll actually say, and this I thought was like the most touching part about the whole thing was why Sugar, of all of the people who, even Alex gets whacked, but Sugar gets spared because Sugar was the one person who didn't abandon Mariah when she had nothing. When it no longer served him to serve her, he still said no, because I am loyal. And this is why Sugar, I think, is the most interesting character in all of this, because, you know, he, you know, and you know, not for nothing, as Mariah says, you know, she hated wearing his wife's clothes, you know. She hated, you know, wearing that dime store knockoff, off the rack stuff. But it was what he gave, because it was what he had, and he wasn't going to leave Mariah out the way everyone else did. And, you know, and that, I think, if anyone's going to keep Luke on track, I think it's Sugar. You know, because I think Sugar is the guy that can say, you know, you've got to walk this line. You can be a gangster, but you have to be a gangster.
And we saw him in the last episode, I believe, walk away when things got too morally ambiguous, and he was like, you know what, this ain't for me. Right.
No, exactly, because it's not what he signed up for, you know. And not for nothing, Sugar's always been that way. He did that the first season too. When Cornell went way off the rack, he's like, you know what?
I think Luke's going to be okay.
I'm going to find something else to do. I think so. Well, obviously he is Luke Cage. He is, you know. I don't think he's actually going to fall all the way, but you know, a lot of many superhero stories are that progress from being a hero to being you know, falling away, you know, and that's where we find our that's where we leave Luke. You know, he is the king of Harlem. And will he be a benevolent king, or will he fall to despotism? That's the question we ask. Anyway.
I think it's interesting this season, sort of, in the same way that The Dark Knight wasn't about The Dark Knight at all, it was really about the Joker. I think this season really ended up being about Mariah. And I think the most powerful scenes and the best written dialogue and the best acting, it was all with Mariah, and and she has like the greatest scene I think ever in that jail scene where those two women come and pretend to save her and want her to be subservient to them. And she just turns over. She goes, "Can I get a blade? I just want to carve that woman's face up that wanted to kill me." And then just cuts that woman's. It was so powerful. And then offers them money and just gets everything under control. But then slinks away and gets on the phone and just starts breaking down. It's still real. She's not, she's still fighting to try to appear like she's. And sometimes in those moments, she is a little bit of that animal, but she's not human at the same time either.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and honestly, I 100% agree with that. Was like that scene, that whole process, just really makes the whole series. And yeah, and it is definitely
and you could see what Shade sees in her in that moment, in in as much as what he's excited by,
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Well, that is it, Mozz. People would like to reach out to you, talk to you about Luke Cage, ask when's it coming back, talk to you about anything else we do here on the Capes and Lunatics.
They can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com. That's MOZZMANZOOR @gmail.com. Or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor.
And of course, you can always write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way our Mozz and Paz once did back in the 80s at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And of course, follow me on the Twitters as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Cloak and Dagger and other shows that I can stay up for if I don't fall asleep at 8 o'clock like usual. Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEssser. Look for the two E's in the middle.
Bing!
For quality. Anyway, sweet, sweet, sweet Christmas. Sweet Hanukkah. Sweet Kwanzaa. All you jive turkeys out there, thank you for coming into the cage with us. And join us soon for the Iron Cast. We will walk the path of the Iron Fist. Good night.